Hey guys, I'm Tim with Junglebox, and this is Jungle Talks. Hey guys, what's up? It's Tim with Junglebox, and today's episode is about expandable gap foam. When and when not to use this foam. So many videos out there show people using this foam as a background. They squirt it all over the back of the tank. It's probably one of the worst things you can use actually because the plants can't root into it. It's inorganic, it's basically plastic. It also takes away depth from your tank, which takes away light from your lower level plants and makes it harder for your vining plants to grow on. But we are going to talk about the great ways to use this stuff when building vivariums, and one of those things is gluing pieces of wood that need a lot of purchase and grip to hold on to, where you wouldn't normally use like a silicone or other type of glue. So today what we have here is our plastic grate. This plastic grate we measure out to fit, for example, this 12 by 12 terrarium. It's this light diffusing panel. We don't ever recommend using anything other than black in one of these builds. It shows off and it just doesn't look good. So we've cut this square to fit either inside the bottom of this tank, and it's going to act as the separation or the base of the tank, or what we've kind of found out as a happy accident is you can flip this upside down and place it on top of your vivarium so that you can have a hanging structure. But first of all, you have to get these pieces of wood glued down and secured. So that's what we're going to talk about today. As you can see right here, these pieces of wood are rested on this, and underneath this grate is a plastic bag. You can use plastic wrap, saran wrap. I like the Ziploc bag. It seems to have a texture to it that really releases off of the foam once it's fully dry. So as you can see here, we've got our pieces of wood. We've got a piece of newsprint in between this to keep the space like we want it and to arrange the pieces like we want them to look. This is all going to come undone once the glue is set and the foam is ready to be carved. The fishing line here you see also is just here to bind these pieces together and wait for the drying process to happen. Once the foam is expanded and dried and it's set for 24 hours, we're going to take all of this off, carve it away, and you'll see the finished product. So we have our gaps and cracks filler. We're going to give this guy a good shake. Always recommend using gloves. It's really hard to get this stuff off of your hands and arms because it doesn't wash off with soap and water. A little of this goes a long way. So start easy and then go from there. You don't need to add a ton of this stuff. We're going to go around the edge here. And as you can see, I'm kind of going up the sides a little bit of the pieces of wood. We're going to carve this down later, but what that does is it helps grip the wood and helps give you a bigger surface area to glue down. Some of these pieces of driftwood can be kind of heavy, and so you want to make sure that they're not going to go anywhere on you once they start to get wet. So we're going to go up the side of the wood just a little bit. Again, we're going to carve away a lot of this later. Inside the back where you're not going to see it is probably even a better place to go up the side. But again, a little of this goes a long way. This is going to double or triple in size once it dries. And so you really don't need to go too overboard here. You're just going to waste it, and you're going to have to do a lot more carving. And making the base a little wider, especially on a piece where you only have a tiny bit, like if there's a piece that you found, but it's only got a tiny bit touching the grate, you really want to make sure you give a nice base of foam to hold that piece of wood in place, because once it gets wet, the decaying process is going to make it easier to lift off of anything that's glued. This stuff holds pretty well for a long time, but still, you want to make sure you give yourself plenty of surface area to hold those branches in place. So if you can visualize what this would look like, it's either going to kind of look like a mountainous structure if it's this way in the tank, or it's going to look like kind of like a conical downward action if it's flipped upside down. So stay tuned, we'll show you what it looks like when it's done being carved and put in the tank. We're talking about foam, and this is an example of a background that we use foam on, and some of this rigging here with the tape and the fishing line that you see, we're going to talk about that in one of our other episodes on how to prepare to build a background. But suffice it to say, this stuff is just to keep the glass safe and to keep your wood in place while you're waiting for the glue to dry, similarly to our volcano or mountain structure that you saw us try to foam earlier. So right now we're going to show you how to carve away the foam. Super easy. All you need is like a basic kitchen knife. A razor blade is usually too short. There's not enough dexterity with that, so I really just do like a regular steak knife. A serrated one and a sharp one is even better.
All right, guys, so we're carving this foam here. All of these big bubbles and these big pieces, this is stuff you just don't really need. It happens as the foam expands and it naturally wants to make a rounder form. So you really just want to kind of try to start to peel off this extra stuff. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to cover this with brown silicone and tree fern fiber or cocoa core, something later. You'll notice that on the back of the tank here, there's already brown silicone on here. This was done before we put the foam on. Otherwise, the foam will actually pull away from the glass as it shrinks and ages. So you don't ever want to foam on raw glass or it will cause you problems in the future. All right, so we're gonna go all the way around this thing and we're gonna try to make the shape of this foam gradually kind of fade into the background. We want it to look natural if we can. Like I said, again, we're gonna cover this up later, but you do want to try to get the majority of the bulk of the extra foam off of here. So see how you're starting to get a nice curvature here? It kind of looks like it could be part of the branch or part of the tree. That's the goal, is to get a little bit more shapely with the foam and have it look a little bit less what we're gonna call like contrived or unnatural. And some of this extra stuff in here, this base, this outline, that's really what's kind of holding all this in place. This extra stuff up here is just not necessary to hold this branch in place. And so we're gonna finish carving all this, and then when you guys see this tank again on our episode about how to use silicone, we're gonna show you how to paint the silicone on, really easy, cover it up with tree fern fiber, cocoa core, whatever you have laying around to really blend seamlessly that foam into the branch and into your background, and you'll never even know it's there.